Shalom, everyone. A little change of scenery. I'm in my home study and not in the shul, and a little change of format. Instead of a formal sermon today, we'll do more of a limud, a study together of a fascinating source, a very short midrash that I've been thinking about over the last few days. It's really captured my attention. So join me as we study some of these ideas together. The Midrash is based on an interesting choice of words for the beginning of the Parsha, in Bechukotai telechu, if you follow my decrees. Now, the word chosen for my decrees, Bechukotai, usually the word chok, refers to a mitzvah for whose reason is not obvious to us, at least not at first glance. But the word Bechukotai is also related to the word chakak, which means to engrave, something that is engraved, like the luchot, like the Ten Commandments, where the words were engraved onto the stone. And it's this idea of engraving on a stone that leads the Midrash to talk about stones in general. And while this is not the topic of this limud, of this learning, while I was in the process of putting this all together, I realized that stones play a really, really important role in the Torah. And maybe one day I'll give a shiur or a series of classes just on the importance of stones, of rocks in the Torah. But back to our regularly scheduled program. So the Midrash says as follows: Torah kiruya even. The Midrash, this is in Vayikra Rabbah, the Torah is called a stone. The Yetzer Hara kiruya even. And the evil inclination is called a stone as well. And then the Midrash quotes a pasuk to back up each claim, that the Torah is called an even when it says, and this is in Shemot, chapter 24, verse 12, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, alei elai hara, v'heyeh sham, God said to Moshe, come up to the mountain and wait there, v'tna lecha et luchot ha'even, and I will give you the stone tablets. That's the Torah, and there you see it's referred to as Luchot Even, the stone tablets. And then the Yetzer Hara is referred to as a stone in a pasuk in Yechezkel, chapter 36, verse 26. V'natati lechem lev chadash v'ruach chadasha, I will give you a new heart and a new spirit. V'hasiroti et lev ha'even mibsarchem, and I will remove the heart of stone from your body. And that heart of stone, says the Midrash, refers to the Yetzer Hara. So we have the Torah is called an even, a stone, and the Yetzer Hara is called a stone. And this begs the question, right? It's a strange and provocative statement that the Midrash says, which seems to equate the Torah and the Yetzer Hara. How could it be possible that the two are equated? So I'd like to share two ideas, two possibilities of understanding this Midrash, which I think have profound lessons for us in our life as well. One way, of course, to understand this Midrash is to simply say that they are different types of stones. Not every stone is the same. Sometimes stones are used to build, to construct homes that shelter people, or roads that help transport people and develop a society. Right? Sometimes stones are used for good things, and maybe that's what the Midrash means when it says Torah kiruya even. Torah is a constructive mechanism through which to create a better society. But sometimes stones are used to cause injury to people. They could be thrown at people. We know the Torah in Vayikra. A few weeks ago we read, Lifnei iver lo titein michshol. Don't put a stumbling block, right? A stone in front of a blind person that's going to cause them to fall and injure themselves. So it's two different types of stones. The Midrash is not equating the Torah and the Yetzer Hara. An example of how the same thing can be perceived to be used for the good and also perceived by others to be used for the bad is found in a fascinating story, which is mentioned in Masechet Shabbat, page 33b, Lamed Gimel Amud Bet. And this is the story, having just celebrated Lag BaOmer, this is the story which led to Rav Shimon Bar Yochai having to go into hiding. The story says as follows: Patach Rabbi Yehuda v'amar, Kama na'im ma'asehem shel umazo. Rabbi Yehuda says, how pleasant are the actions of this nation? He's referring to the Romans. Tiknu shvukim, tiknu gisharim, tiknu merchatzot. He said, look what they've done. They've built an infrastructure, marketplaces, established bridges, and established bathhouses. Rabbi Yossi shatak. Rabbi Yossi, who was there, didn't say anything. He didn't react. Na'aneh Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai v'amar. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai responded and said, Lama shetiknu, lo tiknu el l'tzorech atzman. So Shimon ben Yochai says, why do they build these things? They built these things for their own purposes. Tiknu shvukin lahoshiv bahen zonot. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai says they only built the marketplaces to place prostitutes in them. Merchatzot la'adein bahen atzman. And they built the bathhouses to pamper themselves. Gisharim litol mehen meches. And they only built the bridges to collect taxes from those who pass over them. So it's fascinating, right? Rabbi Yehuda sees what the Romans did and perceives them as good things. Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai sees what the Romans did and perceives them as bad things. Incidentally, the Romans got wind of this conversation, put a bounty on Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai's head, and he had to go into hiding. So one message of this Midrash that compares the Torah and the Yetzer Hara is to say that not all rocks are the same. The rock that is equated with the Torah builds, the rock that is equated with the Yetzer Hara destroys. The Midrash is written this way to challenge us to distinguish between the two. On Saturday night, Motzei Shabbat, we say Havdalah in the Amidah, and we say it as part of the bracha that we ask for wisdom. Atachonein la'adam dat, you have graced us with knowledge, and we ask God to give us wisdom as we're every single morning and evening and night. We need wisdom to make good decisions. The Gemara explains why the Havdalah is embedded in the blessing of Dat, in the blessing of wisdom. And the Gemara's language is Im ein chachma Havdalah minayin. If there is no wisdom, how can we make distinctions? Here, the rabbis are teaching us the same important lesson, the lesson of the Midrash, the importance of discerning the difference between things that may seem similar but are actually different and will lead to different outcomes. So we put the blessing of Havdalah, which distinguishes between holiness of Shabbat and the rest of the week, we put that in the blessing where we ask God for wisdom as a way of reminding ourselves that the ability to make distinctions between the holy and the profane is only as good as our wisdom. I often think about this in terms of decisions that we make. Sometimes a slight variation in the decision that we make can make all the difference in the world. From a distance, the change we make may seem not significant, but in the end, it could actually be monumental. A good example of this would be conversations that we have, right? Sometimes a carefully chosen word can make all the difference. The message may be the same, but the way it's delivered matters. The word is either a constructive stone or a destructive stone. So that's one way to look at this Midrash. Now let's look at another one. Again, reminding ourselves that the Midrash says Torah Kiruya Even, the Yetzer Hara Kiruya Even, that both the Torah and the Yetzer Hara are called the stone. So in Hasidic thought, the Yetzer Hara is not the evil inclination. Rather, it represents the ability to serve God in ways other than are obviously religious. Just take a moment to think about that idea, that there are two modes through which we serve God, right? We could serve God through the traditional modes of Torah study and prayer and the obvious mitzvot. But we could also, I'm suggesting, serve God through other ways, through eating, through enjoying the world, through enjoying the pleasures of God's creation. So in our Midrash, the Yetzer Tov, that's called the rock, that's the good inclination, and it refers to the obvious ways we serve God. But then the Midrash adds the Yetzer Hara, what we call the evil inclination, really refers to ways in which we engage in the world. Both are called rocks. Both can be forces for good, for building, for spiritual building. This is a beautiful idea and reminds us that the service of God has two elements. There is the obviously religious, and then there is life. We serve God by praying, learning Torah, as I said, doing the mitzvahs, and we also serve God through proper and measured interaction with and enjoyment of the world around us. This idea is not the sole purview of Hasidic thought. It actually plays a role in the Shulchan Aruch. There is an entire section, an entire siman of the Shulchan Aruch that is dedicated to this idea, and this is in section 131 in the Orach Chaim, which reminds us Shekol ma'asecha yiyu l'shem shamayim, that everything we do, not just the obviously religious things we do, should be for the service of God, for a higher purpose. So I'll read you a few lines. Everything we enjoy in this world should not be for our pleasure. And I'll amend a little bit, not only for our pleasure. I think we're allowed and supposed to enjoy things, but in doing so, but also to serve God. A verse from Mishlei. Know God in all your ways, in everything that we do. The idea that I quoted, that everything we do should be for the sake of heaven. This idea is an invitation for us to think about our actions. So take today, for example, or tomorrow, the next day, as you're going through your day. See how or if everyday actions can be in the service of God, how they can help people, how they can better society, how they can support the members of our family or support anyone for that matter. Everything we do could be a rock, could be a foundation, could build the obvious things, what the Midrash calls Torah, and the not obvious things, the things that the Midrash calls the Yetzer Hara. Those things that we enjoy in life can also be of great service to humanity. So the Midrash offers at least two ideas for our consideration. The Torah and the Yetzer Hara are not the same. This is the first approach. Both are called rock to teach us the importance of distinguishing between things that are at first glance similar, but really may not be, and reminds us to carefully choose our actions. They may seem similar, but they could make a huge difference. And the second idea is that the Torah and the Yetzer Hara are the same. They're the same in the sense that they could both be used to serve God. Here we learn that our life should be a combination of serving God in the obvious and in the non-obvious ways. This approach reminds us that even as we think things are mundane, they could have a great significance. May we all be blessed with a Shabbat and a week ahead of making proper distinctions and recognizing the importance of all of our actions. Shabbat Shalom.